chosen ones. You almost ignored this like the last time something felt off, but you brushed it away. It's strange though, because this one didn't fade like the others, and now you're here trying to figure out why. Wait, not everything that stopped working was a loss. Some of it was removed before you got too comfortable. There's a moment you remember it, but not clearly, when something shifted and you couldn't explain it. Not dramatic, not loud, just different. And after that, things started slipping. Plans didn't land. People changed tone. Even your own energy felt misaligned, like you were slightly out of place in your own life. But here's the part you didn't catch. That wasn't things falling apart. That was timing being rearranged. You thought you were late. You thought you missed it. But what if you were being held back on purpose? What if moving forward then would have locked you into something smaller than what was actually meant for you? Listen. There's a reason certain doors didn't open no matter how much you pushed. Not because you weren't ready, but because those doors weren't built for who you were becoming. And yeah, that's uncomfortable. Because it means you weren't in control the way you thought you were. But be honest, why did it feel like something was quietly guiding you away, even when you didn't want to go? And now recently something feels different again, supple. But this time it's not resistance, it's movement. Not fast, not obvious, but things are aligning in ways you can't fully explain yet. Did you notice how something that used to drain you suddenly lost its grip? Or how a thought came back to you out of nowhere, one you almost forgot, and now it feels important again? That's not random, that's the flip. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because if everything is actually shifting in your favor, then you don't get to stay the same version of yourself that survived the waiting. That version was built for endurance, not arrival. And carrying that same mindset forward will slow down what's already been set in motion. So now you're in between. Not where you were, but not fully where you're going. And that space feels confusing. You might even question if anything is really changing at all. But ask yourself this: why does it feel like something is about to click, even when nothing obvious has happened yet? Exactly, because the shift didn't start outside. It started in you. Before things visibly change, there's always this phase where your awareness sharpens, where you begin to see patterns you ignored before, where certain behaviors, yours or others, don't sit right anymore, where silence suddenly feels louder than noise. And it's not peaceful, it's unsettling, because clarity forces decisions, and decisions change direction. But didn't you ask for something more? Didn't you at some point get tired of repeating the same cycles, even if they were comfortable? Then why hesitate now that something is actually breaking those cycles? See, this is where most people turn back. Not because things aren't working, but because they are. And it demands a version of them they haven't fully stepped into yet. You're not being pushed out, you're being pulled forward. There's a difference. And if you're honest, you felt it. In the way your patience started running thinner with things that used to be okay. In the way your attention shifted towards something deeper, something that doesn't even fully make sense yet. In the way certain connections either intensified suddenly or quietly faded without explanation. That's alignment. Not everything that left was a loss. Some of it couldn't follow you here. And yeah, it would have been easier if this shift came with clear signs. Obvious confirmations. But it didn't. It came quietly, almost in a way that made you doubt it. That's intentional, because this wasn't meant to be followed blindly. It was meant to be recognized by you, and now you're starting to see it. Not fully, not clearly, but enough to know something is different, something flipped. And it didn't ask for permission. It just happened. Which means the question isn't whether things are changing. The question is, are you going to move with it or hesitate long enough to miss what's already been set in your favor? You can feel something shifting, even if you can't fully explain it yet. Comment 777 if you're starting to recognize this change in yourself. Stay connected to Born into Light, only if this is something you truly feel. Because hesitation doesn't feel like a mistake at first. It feels like thinking, like being careful, like waiting for one more sign, just to be sure. But that's the part that slows everything down, not the outside. You, and you know it. There's been this quiet nudge lately, not loud enough to force you, but strong enough that ignoring it feels wrong, like something inside you is leaning forward while the rest of you stays still. Why? What are you still waiting for? Clarity? You're not going to get it the way you expect, not this time, because this shift isn't built on certainty, it's built on recognition. And recognition is subtle. It doesn't shout. It doesn't prove itself over and over. It shows itself once, maybe twice, and then it waits to see if you trust what you already felt. That moment earlier, the one you almost dismissed it, wasn't random. It was the first opening, small, easy to overlook, but it carried something different. You felt it, even if you didn't understand it. So why did you pull back? Was it fear, or was it unfamiliarity? Because there's a difference. Fear makes noise. This didn't. This was quiet, almost too quiet, and that's what made you question it. But think about it. When has anything truly aligned in your life ever felt loud in the beginning? It didn't. It always started like this. Subtle shifts, small redirections, moments that didn't make sense until later. So why treat this one differently, unless part of you already knows what this means? And that's what you're avoiding. Because if you admit this is real, then you have to move. Not later, now. And that changes things. It means you can't keep standing in the same place, analyzing every detail, waiting for it to feel perfectly safe. Because it won't. This kind of shift doesn't come with comfort. It comes with movement. And movement exposes things. It reveals where you've been holding on, where you've been settling, where you've been pretending something still fits when it doesn't anymore. You've felt that too, haven't you? That slight disconnect. Not enough to break everything, but enough to make you question it. That's not confusion. That's clarity trying to surface. And here's the contradiction. You don't actually need more time to understand this. You need less resistance to act on it. See the difference. One delays, the other unlocks. And something is already unlocking, even if you haven't fully stepped into it yet. You can feel the pressure building, not in a stressful way, but in a way that feels like something is about to break through. Like you're right at the edge of something, and staying still feels heavier than moving forward. That's not anxiety, it's momentum. But momentum doesn't wait forever. It either carries you, or it moves past you. So let me ask you something you haven't really answered yet. What exactly are you trying to hold on to that already feels like it's slipping? And be honest, because this is where the shift either deepens or fades back into something you'll call almost. And you've had enough almost, haven't you? Enough moments that felt close but never fully landed. This is different. Not because it feels stronger, but because it's asking something from you. Something specific, something you've been avoiding naming. Say it, even if just in your own mind. Because the second you do, everything starts to make a little more sense. Not fully, but enough. Enough to move, enough to stop questioning every step. Enough to realize this wasn't just something happening to you. It was something waiting on you. Not for you to understand it, for you to decide. And that's heavier than it sounds. Because understanding keeps you safe. Decision changes your direction. You felt that pause, didn't you? That split second where everything inside you went quiet, like something was watching what you'd do next. You moved past it. Or maybe you hesitated just enough, but it didn't disappear. It stayed. That's the part you can't explain. Why it didn't leave. Why it keeps circling back in different forms, different thoughts, same feeling underneath. Almost like it's testing something. No, not testing you, refining you. There's a difference. Testing tries to see if you're ready. Refining assumes you already are, and just adjusts what's in the way. So what's in the way? Look closely. It's not the big things, it's the small hesitations. The second guessing. The way you almost move, then pull back at the last second. Why? Who taught you to doubt what felt clear for a moment? Because that moment, that brief clarity you keep brushing off, that's where the shift actually lives. Not in the long thinking, not in the overanalyzing. In that instant, before the noise comes back, you've been trained to ignore it, to wait for something louder, something more obvious. But what if the obvious was never meant for you? What if yours was always quieter, sharper, harder to fake? That would explain a lot. Why certain things never satisfied you. Why surface-level answers felt empty. Why you kept searching without knowing exactly what for. Because you weren't looking for more information. You were looking for confirmation of something you already sensed. And now it's getting closer. That feeling, it's not distant anymore. It's right there, closer than before. Almost uncomfortable, like it's pressing up against your awareness, waiting for you to stop distracting yourself long enough to notice it fully. So why do you keep shifting your focus away right when it gets close? Be honest. Is it really confusion? Or is it the weight of what it would require from you if you stop pretending you don't see it? Because once you see it clearly, you can't go back. Not to the same mindset, not to the same mindset, not to the same patterns. Even if you try, it won't fit the same. And that's the part you've been avoiding. Not the change, the permanence of it. But here's the contradiction. You're acting like this is something new entering your life. It's not. It's something that's been there. You just couldn't hold on to it long enough before. That's why it feels familiar. That's why it feels like you've been here before. But not like this. This time it's staying longer. This time it's not fading as quickly. Why? What changed? You did, even if you don't fully see how yet. Something in you stopped settling for partial awareness, stopped numbing the signals, stopped pretending not to notice. And that's when things started to respond differently. Not outside first, inside. Subtle, but undeniable. You started catching things earlier, sensing shifts before they fully happened, feeling misalignment faster than before. That's not random, that's precision increasing, and precision changes timing. Now you're noticing things at the exact moment they matter, not too late, not after the fact, right when a decision can still shift everything. Which brings you back here, to this moment, again. But this time it feels different, heavier, clearer. Like something won't let you scroll past it mentally anymore. So I'll ask you something you haven't answered fully. If you already know what this is pointing toward, why are you still pretending you need more time to figure it out? Or maybe that's not it. Maybe you're waiting for permission. From who? Because the moment you're waiting for, it already happened. You just didn't call it that at the time. Because if you had, you would have had to respond to it, and you weren't ready to move like that yet, so your mind renamed it. Doubt, confusion, maybe later. Anything except what it actually was. A turning point, small, quiet, but final. And you felt that finality, didn't you? That slight tension in your chest, like something was closing behind you while something else opened ahead. You ignored that part, focused on what you could still go back to. But even then, it didn't feel the same. That's what you keep trying to override, that knowing. That certain things already ended energetically before they ended physically, and now you're standing in the overlap, where one version of your life hasn't fully disappeared, but it's no longer holding you the same way. And that creates friction, not chaos. Friction, subtle, constant, like something is gently pushing you forward while part of you keeps leaning back. Why lean back? What's still there that actually fits you now? Be precise, because this is where it tightens. Not everything you're holding on to is wrong, but it's not aligned anymore, and you can feel the difference. It's slight, but it's enough. Enough to make you pause in moments you used to move through easily. Enough to make certain conversations feel off. Enough to make you question things you used to accept without thinking. That's not overthinking, that's recalibration. And recalibration always feels uncomfortable before it feels right. But here's the part that might not sit well. You don't actually need more signs. You already crossed the threshold. You're just standing there, acting like you haven't. Why? because stepping fully through means you can't pretend this is temporary. It means you accept that something has already shifted in a way that won't reverse, and that's a commitment, not externally, internally, to a version of yourself you haven't fully stabilized in yet. And that instability, that in-between feeling, that's where you're learning to trust something deeper than logic, which is why logic keeps failing you here. You try to explain it and it falls apart. You try to map it out and it doesn't hold. But when you stop trying to control it, something aligns. Just slightly. Just enough to move. So why do you keep going back to what doesn't give you that? Habit or fear of stepping into something that actually expects more from you? Because this right now, it's not about comfort anymore. It's about precision. And precision doesn't allow you to keep everything. It filters. It removes. It sharpens. That's why some things feel like they're slipping faster now. Not because you're losing control, but because control is being replaced with alignment. And alignment is exact. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't adjust to keep you comfortable. It adjusts you. So when something feels like it's falling away, pause. Don't chase it. Don't try to fix it immediately. Look at it. What changed? Not outside. Inside you. What no longer tolerates what used to be okay. That's the real shift, and it's still happening. Right now, even as you're trying to make sense of it. Even as part of you still questions whether this is real. Because here's the contradiction. The part of you that doubts this the most is the same part that recognizes it instantly. Strange, right? But that's how you know this isn't something new. It's something remembered, something you've touched before, briefly, and now it's staying long enough for you to actually do something with it. So I'll ask you this. If this moment, right now, is the continuation of something you already started without realizing, then what exactly do you think happens if you stop again, or worse, if you pretend you never saw it at all? It doesn't disappear. That's the part no one tells you. It waits, not patiently, just quietly, and it changes how everything feels after that. You can go back, technically. You can step into the same routines, say the same things, keep everything looking the same on the surface, but something underneath won't cooperate anymore. You'll feel it. In the pauses, in the silence after conversations, in that slight resistance when you try to fully relax into what used to be normal. Why does it feel heavier now? Nothing changed, right? Except it did. You saw something. And seeing creates responsibility. Not the kind you can explain to anyone. The kind you carry internally. The kind that doesn't let you fully lie to yourself anymore. And that's where it starts tightening. Because now it's not about discovering the shift. It's about acknowledging it. And those are two completely different things. You already discovered it. That moment, yeah, that one, you've replayed it more than once without realizing why. It felt small at the time, almost dismissible. But something about it lingered longer than it should have. Why that moment? Why did it stay when everything else faded? That's your answer, or at least the edge of it. Because if you go back to that exact second, not what happened outside, what happened inside you, there was a reaction, quick, unfiltered, before your mind stepped in and started managing it. That reaction, that's what you've been avoiding, not the event, the clarity inside it. And now it's closer than before. You don't have to search for it anymore. It's already there, waiting for you to stop adjusting away from it. But here's the shift. You keep thinking this is about making a big move. It's not. That's the illusion. This isn't about changing everything at once. It's about not ignoring the smallest alignment when it shows up. Because that's where it starts. That's where it always started. And you missed it before, not because you couldn't see it, but because you didn't trust what you saw. So you delayed. You paused. You waited for something louder. And by the time it got louder, it was already too late to move the same way. But this time, it didn't leave. Why? Why is it still here? Why does it feel like it's giving you another chance to respond, but not in the same way? Because now it's not asking if you notice it. It's asking if you'll follow it. And that's different. Not everyone gets that. Not everyone reaches the point where the signal stays long enough to act on. So if it's still here with you, if it hasn't faded, if it keeps coming back in slightly different ways, then what does that tell you? Be honest, because this is where it sharpens again. This isn't pressure, it's precision increasing. And precision removes excuses. You either align with it or you feel the misalignment immediately. There's no neutral space anymore. That's why it feels more intense now. Not overwhelming, just undeniable. So when you feel that pull again, and you will, pay attention to how fast your mind tries to redirect you. That speed, that immediate shift away, that's not random. That's the exact moment you're supposed to stay. But you don't. Not fully. You hover near it, then step back. Why? What are you protecting? Or maybe, what are you avoiding becoming? Because stepping into this doesn't just change your direction. It changes how you see everything that comes after. And once that lens shifts, you don't get to unsee it, which means the version of you that could ignore this is already gone. You just haven't accepted it yet. So now you're here, in this exact space, where the next step isn't unclear, it's just unchosen. And that's the difference you've been circling this whole time. Not confusion, choice. A quiet one, but a real one. And it's still open for now. That part matters more than you think, because you felt this before, just not this clearly. A window. Brief, easy to overlook if you hesitate too long. And when it closed, you told yourself it wasn't meant for you. But that wasn't true. You just didn't move when it was open. And now it's open again. Not the same way. Sharper, closer, less forgiving. You can feel that difference, can't you? It's not as gentle this time, not as patient. Almost like it expects you to recognize it immediately and respond without overthinking it. Why? What changed between then and now? You did, not in some dramatic way, in smaller ways, quieter ways, the kind no one else notices. But you do. You notice how quickly something feels off now, how certain choices drain you faster, how pretending takes more effort than it used to. That's not random. That's your tolerance shifting. And when your tolerance shifts, your timing changes. That's why this moment feels tighter, more precise, like it won't stretch itself around your hesitation anymore. And here's the uncomfortable truth. This might be the last time it shows up like this. Not because it disappears, but because you either step into it or it reshapes into something harder to ignore, less subtle, more forceful. And you don't want that. You don't want it to get louder, because when it gets louder, it usually comes with loss, with endings you didn't choose, with things being removed instead of gently released. So why wait for that? Why let it reach that point, when right now, it's still giving you a quieter option, a cleaner movement, one that doesn't break everything, just realigns it. But that requires something from you, not effort, not struggle. Decisions. Simple, immediate. And that's where you pause again, right there, at the edge, where you feel it most clearly and still question it just enough to delay. Why? Because once you move, there's no going back to not knowing, no returning to the version of you that could sit in uncertainty and call it comfort. That version ends here, and maybe that's what you're actually feeling. Not fear of moving forward, but awareness that something behind you is already closing. Slowly, quietly, without asking you. So let me shift this for a second. What if the risk isn't moving too soon? What if the risk is realizing later that you waited through the exact moment everything was aligned for you? That would sit heavier, wouldn't it? Knowing you felt it, knew it, paused anyway, and watched it pass. Again, but this time feels different. Because deep down, you don't feel like you'll get to call this one just another moment. It carries weight, a different kind. The kind that lingers, the kind that marks a before and after, and you're standing right in the middle of it. Not later, not soon, now. So pay attention. What is the very first thing that comes to mind when you stop thinking about it? not the second thought, not the safer option. The first one, the one that appeared before you started adjusting it. That's it, that's the direction. And you knew that already. You just didn't want it to be that simple. But it is. And the longer you complicate it, the more you drift from what was actually clear. So don't overextend this moment. Don't stretch it until it loses its edge. Because it will. That clarity you feel right now, it doesn't stay sharp forever. It dulls, it fades. Not because it's gone, but because you didn't use it when it was strongest. And you're right there, at its sharpest point. So this is it. Not a build-up, not a preparation, a decision point. Quiet, unseen, but real. And it's not waiting for you to be ready. It's waiting for you to stop pretending you're not, because readiness was never the missing piece. You've been ready longer than you admit. What you've been delaying is the moment you stop negotiating with it. That quiet back and forth in your head, maybe not yet, maybe I need one more sign. That isn't caution. It's avoidance wearing a calm voice. And it's subtle enough that you almost believe it. But notice something. Every time you delay, the feeling doesn't settle. It sharpens, gets closer, almost like it's narrowing in on you. Why would it do that? Why would something keep returning with more clarity instead of fading, unless it's not trying to convince you, it's trying to corner your indecision? And that's exactly where you are now. Cornered, not trapped, focused. There's a difference, because now you can't look in 10 directions anymore. It's one, clear, direct, uncomfortable, and strangely, simple. So simple it almost feels wrong, like you're missing something, like it shouldn't be this straightforward. But what if that's the pattern breaking? What if everything before had to be complicated? So you would finally recognize what clarity actually feels like. Because this doesn't feel like effort. It feels like knowing. And knowing doesn't argue. It just sits there, waiting. You've been circling around it, touching the edge, then pulling back right before it locks in. Why stop there? What happens in that exact second that makes you hesitate? Look closely. That's where the truth is hiding, not in the big picture. In that split second, right before commitment, there's a shift in you, a tightening, a quiet voice that says, "This is it," and then you soften it, you dilute it, you turn it into something you can revisit later. But later isn't where this works. You already know that. This kind of moment doesn't repeat the same way twice. It evolves, and if you don't meet it here, it meets you somewhere else. Differently, usually harder. Here's the contradiction. You think waiting keeps you safe, but waiting is what puts you in situations where the choice gets taken out of your hands. That's what you've experienced before. That slow build, then sudden shift you didn't control. You called it bad timing, but was it? Or was it the result of not moving when it was still quiet? Because right now, it's still quiet. Still yours to respond to. Still asking, not forcing. And that won't last. You can feel that, can't you? That slight urgency under everything. Not panic, not pressure. Just a closing distance. So let me ask you something more direct. If you remove the fear of being wrong, what would you do next? Don't think. You already felt it. That instant answer. That's the one. And you pulled away from it just as fast. Why? Because it requires you to step into something without proof. But that's not new. You've done that before. Every time something actually aligned in your life, you moved before you had confirmation. You just forgot that. Or maybe you've been trying to protect yourself from having to trust like that again. But this isn't the same. It just feels similar, and that's enough to make you hesitate. But hesitation is costing you clarity. And clarity is the only thing that matters right now. Not certainty, not guarantees. Clarity, and you have it, right there, unspoken, unacted on, still waiting. So I'll leave you with this, that moment you keep almost stepping into, the one that feels too simple to be real. too direct to ignore. That's not a random impulse. That's the exact point. Everything started shifting in your favor. You just haven't stepped fully into it yet. And that's the part that still feels unfinished. Like a door slightly open, waiting for you to either walk through or walk away without closing it. You don't need more time. You need to stop standing at the edge like you're still deciding what this is. You already know what it is. That's why it won't leave you alone. So this is it. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a quiet moment where everything is aligned and all it needs is you to move. And once you do, you'll realize nothing just flipped in your favor. It was always waiting for you to stop holding it back. This wasn't random. It was meant for you to see right now. Subscribe if you're ready to move with what's already shifting inside you, because once you see it, you're not the same anymore.